Welcome to Tangential Soup, a weekly podcast discussing life in Australia, technology, food, fitness, and the like, hosted by myself, David Caddy, Melburnian, independent developer and tea enthusiast, as well as my good childhood friend, Alexander Carr, Sydney-sider, slave to the man, karate practitioner, and lover of adventure. This week we talk about an historic rocket launch and Tesla's influence in South Australia. So, Alex, did you see, I'm sure you did, because basically everyone did, and the news covered it quite comprehensively, SpaceX's Falcon Heavy rocket launch the other day?
I did indeed, David. As you said, it's literally impossible to avoid this bit of news. Not to say that's a bad thing, because it is a fairly monumental thing that's happened, but...
It is quite significant.
I saw it, and I saw a few videos of behind-the-scenes footage of Elon Musk celebrating the launch and running around cheering.
Oh yeah, I didn't see that, but I'm sure he was very excited, especially because just before he tweeted something about, it's probably going to blow up on the launch pad. So
yes.
He wasn't overly optimistic that it was going to go quite so well to plan. Not that it was 100% successful, but pretty damn good.
Yeah, he seems to have been quite flippant about it when the whole project began, which was several years ago now, and it's just had setback after setback. But
yeah, he originally wanted this launch to happen, 3-4 years ago or something?
I think so, yeah, that's what I understand.
So the Falcon Heavy, for those that may have missed it somehow, is a pretty powerful rocket, not the most powerful ever, as some news outlets reported, because there was some Voyager mission that used a more powerful one from NASA in years past. But it is the most powerful currently operating space vehicle. And apart from that, one other one is the most powerful and can go anywhere in our solar system without any sort of orbital assistance, sort of slingshotting around things. So self-propelled, it can get anywhere in our solar system. So that makes it pretty significant. Its main job in the future will be, I think, just putting fairly large satellites into orbit. But it has potential for other things, although the BFR is coming along, hopefully online fairly soon in the next 3 or 4 years. So we'll see what happens there.
Yep. In
terms of manned travel, I think. Because there was some talk that this one might not get human rated because Elon expects the BFL to come online.
Well, yeah, obviously it's been a long time coming, but from my understanding, it's now a commercially viable project. So I think even if it doesn't become human rated, it doesn't really matter as long as they can use it to send up the satellite equipment and everything like that.
Yes, so I think the next launch of the Falcon Heavy will have a paid mission from someone to put something into orbit.
Do you know what my question is though? Who I guess is the type of person that volunteers themselves to be the first person to travel on one of these rockets after it becomes certified to carry humans, which presumably still involves extensive testing and safety checking and everything.
A huge amount of testing, far more than it would for just sending a satellite up. I don't know, very adventurous people, astronauts.
How many flights do you think you would have to take, David, or would have to be taken rather before you would jump on a rocket?
I think it would have to get to the point similar to early aviation, where there were a lot of commercial flights happening and the record was pretty damn good and people were using it consistently before I would get on board. So I am very conservative. I would not be one of the first on board. But someone like yourself, you're a bit of an adrenaline junkie.
Yeah, look,
You'd put up your hand, wouldn't you?
Well, you see, I probably wouldn't actually. I mean, it depends. It depends on what I knew about the requirements for the safety testing. Before I got on. But I actually probably wouldn't, because I think there's a difference between, something like jumping out of the plane where it's safe to the point where as long as you don't do anything stupid, it is actually safe, even though it seems fairly dumb. As long as you pull your parachute, you're pretty much guaranteed that you're going to hit the ground safely. But, with something like this, I mean, rockets explode fairly regularly. Obviously, that's been one of the major setbacks with this. Like, it's had a few explosions, a few haven't landed properly, which is another very important factor. And yeah, like, unless I could be sure that it was going to do both of those things, whether through, a proven track record or, well, I mean, I guess a proven track record is really the only way to go. Even if it didn't necessarily have humans in it, like, I don't really think that would necessarily matter, but it would have to take off and land a lot of times for me to be assured that it would actually work.
Yeah. Like, even some of the early rockets have just blown up at the fueling stage on the launch pad. Which shouldn't happen,
exactly.
But it does.
Exactly.
It's a very complicated thing.
It is. And yeah, I would... I don't know. I think that once that stage was passed, then you're just dealing with normal, everyday possibilities, which is just unavoidable, that you deal with every time you get into your car. But they're not exactly the problems you face when you potentially jump into a rocket. We don't know if the rocket's going to light properly, or if it's going to fall over, or if it's going to blow up, or if it's going to be able to land again.
Yes.
Imagine that. You had your whole trip around the moon, you come back, and then the rocket doesn't land properly and you die.
Well, that would be disappointing.
It would be very disappointing.
So let's talk about that for a second. This launch, although very successful, wasn't 100% successful.
No.
So going up, it had 3 breakaway core stages, sort of booster rockets, that separate from the main rocket as it's going up through the orbit. The first 2 stages on the outside came back and landed beautifully. I'm sure you saw footage of that where they were landing like within a second of each other.
Yeah, they were very synchronized.
That is pretty amazing and awe-inspiring, to be honest, that you can orchestrate something to that level of exactitude. But the third one, the center one, which separated a little bit later on, was destined to land on a pad out in the ocean, a floating pad, and only one of its 3 retro rockets coming back down to Earth fired. And although it was pretty close to the target, it missed, but more to the point, it didn't slow down nearly enough, so it hit the ocean, it was obliterated. So not ideal, especially talking about what you said before about the landing. Yes. 2 out of 3 ain't bad, but it's not 100% just yet.
No, it's not exactly odds that you'd stake your life on, is it?
And additionally, it was planned that the rocket was going to go out to an orbit around the sun at a similar distance to Mars, which is why they were always saying it was sort of going out towards Mars. But they fired the boosters for a little bit too long, and so now it's overshot that. And so they can't do anything about it, and it will end up in an orbit around the sun a lot further out and in an asteroid belt. So the poor old roadster that Elon set up could be in for a hard time.
He's not getting it back. Yeah.
Well, he's not getting it back, and he's never going to get it back, but it also could take a hell of a beating. Although I think it was still worth it from a promotional standpoint for Tesla.
Oh, so much.
And just those shots of Earth in the background is pretty amazing.
Yeah, no, that was a great PR stunt. I think he did very well there.
And also somewhat functional because they had to prove that they could take a payload up. So, you got to give him that.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Mm.
What I don't know is that about the size of a satellite that he would be sending up, or equipment that would be going into space? Because I had it in my head that he was taking things that were much heavier, but obviously not.
The size is probably similar-ish, and the weight is probably not too far off. But yeah, I think it can lift more than that. I don't know. I'm not 100% sure what the deal was with that. Maybe they had some additional weight loaded onto it as well.
Right, okay.
Because it was a bit modified and on a stand and all this sort of stuff. So I'm sure they, did something around that.
Yeah, no, I thoroughly enjoyed that. I think everyone else did. I don't know if you go on Reddit ever, but if you go on Reddit, all it's got is Elon Musk everywhere and his rockets.
Well, it is pretty awe-inspiring that they were controlling 4 different objects, in space, in the sky at the same time, have 2 land sort of basically simultaneously. The main one has overshot a bit, but has basically performed flawlessly. That last one, you crashed and burned, sure, but given Elon's belief that it could blow up, given the possibilities, given that this is the first time they were launching the Falcon Heavy, I think it's pretty darn successful. And SpaceX is really just hitting it out of the park at the moment.
Yeah.
And at a time where NASA's got very little going on, I mean, this is what's going to inspire the next generation of astronauts and engineers to get involved in the space program.
Yeah, no, I agree. Doesn't really seem like funding from the government's going anywhere when it comes to space travel, so it's a good thing to happen.
Another project that Elon has been instrumental in has been the gigantic battery in South Australia.
Yes.
And it's had its first test over the last, not super recently, but over the summer, where a lot of strain goes onto the grid. It's proven its worth. It saved the system about $3 million in price spikes at peak capacity, so that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, it has. I was actually really interested in this. So basically, they've been saving power in the batteries for this particular event, so that they can then use the emergency power that's been stored in Tesla's battery to feed it back into the grid at a time when power supply is low, or when demand doesn't meet supply. Supply does not meet demand, rather.
Yeah, so essentially what happens is the demand grows, and then the grid sort of requests more electricity from wherever it can find it, even outside the state sometimes. But those suppliers can't necessarily meet the demand either, and in those cases, the price for electricity jumps to such a point where demand comes down because some things that are connected to that price will sort of cease operation or scale back down, and so that sort of equalizes the grid from an economic standpoint. But in this case, that didn't really happen now that this battery's online, because, it can save the electricity in the off-peak times, and that it was able to normalize the grid for a sufficient length of time that peak request time was over, and then it was back to normal. So even so quickly after this project was completed, it's already saving millions of dollars, which is pretty amazing, really, for a government scheme. This was only really initiated a little over a year ago, and to have it paying such huge dividends already, you can just see Tesla's and Elon Musk's, influence everywhere, can't you?
Yeah, and it seems incredible that this is... Well, I mean, it's a state government, obviously. It's not part of the federal government. But it seems that our national government is just so ridiculous and backwards when it comes to these things. And then to have South Australia doing something like this, hopefully paving the way for more.
Yes, hopefully other people jump on, whether it's the federal government or whether it's other state governments. But I applaud what South Australia is doing at the moment. Yes,
me too. It's all very good. It's all good that the technology is working as well. I like it.
And on a similar line, because of, I'm sure, given the success of this, that has somewhat contributed to this new scheme that they're launching, which is to give solar panels and batteries to a bunch of homes through this grant scheme in South Australia to essentially for a similar effect of what the giant battery is doing, but localized at individuals' homes, where they can soak up power and then sell it back to the grid where it's needed.
Yes, yeah. Well, I think this is great because my understanding of this scheme is that the government will be fully funding you or individuals to put solar panels on their roofs, so the people won't actually pay for them, and then they will also be getting a reduced rate on their power based on the power that their roof can generate or kind of soak up, I guess. Thus relieving stress on the grid and potentially building up a reserve of power for times when power is needed.
Yes, it's both a win because it's clean, renewable energy source, and it's a win because it'll help with the grid situation and bring prices down for everyone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
no,
it's a win-win. It's genius, really.
Just to think, though, this technology has, not obviously in the same form, but solar power technology has existed for quite a long time. This has been possible for a while, as far as I understand.
Oh, absolutely. It's not really new. It's just the fact that it's got someone driving and championing this technology. And thankfully, the South Australian government is stepping up to the plate and adopting it.
Yeah.
You need two parties, and here we've got an example where that's happening. But it's not really happening anywhere else yet. But hopefully, again, this shows everyone the way.
Yeah. Because if you think about it, at the moment, energy is big business because, we use all these non-renewable fuels for it and it costs big money and creates a lot of jobs. So it seems that it's just kind of stuck around for those reasons. But it could potentially be the case that literally the energy industry just becomes producing solar power or other renewable energy sources and putting them in place and installing them and then having them kind of managed by, whatever localized area kind of has the resources to do so. Completely change the game.
The coal industry must absolutely hate this.
Oh, of course they do.
Not the fact that it's just going ahead, but also that it's starting to prove its effectiveness.
Oh, yeah.
Before too long, it might actually start to take off, and then they're finished.
Well, yeah, so my understanding of most of the big coal companies in Australia, they're just mining companies. So, they've got the other metals that they mine and basically the other minerals and everything else. So they'll have these kind of side businesses. But when you take the chunk of coal out of their business, they're all going to lose out a lot just because of that particular chunk. And then, I guess the next thing's oil, isn't it? Which, again, Tesla is tackling with things like electric cars. And it could potentially be going the same way.
Hopefully. Oh, another thing I wanted to ask you about, Alex, was the Dow Jones.
Yes. Second crash in the week.
Which, listening back to editing the episode that I released midweek last week, but was actually recorded on the Sunday, the day before the crash, you basically predicted this was going to happen.
I did, yes.
Yeah.
I realised that. But, it didn't do me any good because I realised it was going to happen. And I was like, well, I reckon it might happen towards the end of 2018. And I got into what I've come to appreciate is a very stupid kind of mindset of trying to pick the market, or trying to time the market, rather, which is basically impossible because you don't know what factors are going to set off what. It doesn't seem like the market is actually crashing at the moment. What we're just having is a fairly significant correction in the prices of the shares on the various indexes around the world because America's been driving everything up with the whole Trump promising tax cuts for businesses and incredibly cheap debt, which now looks like it might be coming to an end because they're starting to wind that down and trying to increase interest rates, which isn't going to happen in Australia though, because even though the Australian market doesn't look as healthy, Australian households have huge amounts of debt and they'd be scared to put the interest rates up, at least for the short term, because people wouldn't be able to afford their mortgages if they did. So what's kind of set everything off in America seems to be, well, A, it seems to be really good employment figures, which doesn't make any sense, but B, it's also the news that they're going to look at increasing interest rates soon, which is going to be more expensive to run a business if you've got debt.
It was pretty funny that Trump was giving a speech about how good the economy is doing at the same time that it was plummeting. The markets were plummeting.
Oh, he's such a banana.
Yeah. That's a very nice way of putting it. So what does this actually mean? Because it sort of sounded worrying from the start, and then I sort of heard some people say, well, it's not as bad as you think, but what does it actually mean?
Okay, so the thing about the share market is nobody ever knows what anything means. That's what I've kind of come to know.
Rule numero uno.
Is nobody really understands what exactly is happening. And everyone understands it once it's happened. You know, you'll look back and you'll say, well, of course, there were these factors that led to this and this and this, and it was really obvious when you look back, but at the time, nobody could see it because everyone was concentrating on the fact that this was happening. So what it seems like is happening at the moment, and certainly if you listen to any market analyst or any broker will probably tell you that this is just a correction, which is what you usually get if the market has risen quite suddenly, which is basically what the market has done. Like most of the American markets have gone up by about 10% in the last 3 months or so. And what you usually get after that is you get a correction. So people get over-enthusiastic buying, and then they drive the prices up and up and up. And then suddenly they realize, oh, wow, everything's really expensive and nothing's actually worth what I'm paying for it. I'm going to sell out. And then everyone kind of realizes that prices start to go down a bit. And then people think, oh, I'm overexposed to these things. And then everyone starts selling out. And then you kind of get a downward trend in the market. So when they say a correction, it's not really that different from a crash, other than crashes are usually wipe out, I think, 10% or more of the market. That's, I think, what the definition of a crash is. But this has just been a correction. So it's gone down. The market's gone down by over 4% 2 times this week, but it's also gone up. I think it went up like 2.5% after the 4% correction. And then the second one, it went up by about 1.5%. So like overall, it's probably gone down by about 5% over the last couple of days. Over the last week. But it still doesn't actually look like it's a crash. It's just people kind of limiting their exposure to what everyone seems to think is an expensive market. That's my understanding of it.
Okay, it's sort of finding its new level.
Yeah, I suppose so, yeah. But I still think it's going to go up, especially if Trump can get any tax cuts through. It seems likely to me that the share market will continue to go up. But I do actually think that it seems likely that we will have another crash pretty soon. Just because of the fact that there are really high levels of debt everywhere in the world and really low interest rates.
So is it going to go down or up?
Well, see, again, nobody knows. I think it'll probably go up in the short term.
Short term?
Maybe for the next little while, or it'll stabilize. Maybe it'll still be a bit weird. And then they'll probably raise interest rates. I think in March is when they were looking at doing it, which will probably affect things again. It might go down a bit, but I think it'll still continue to go up for the next year. But I don't know if interest rates continue to go up, then there might be some problems.
Okay, so buy short term, sell longer term.
No, you should actually just hold very defensive assets like cash and bonds, especially because bonds are going to become more expensive or more valuable now that interest rates are going up. And then wait and see if there's actually a major correction in the market, because I think everybody agrees that the market's too expensive at the moment, but nobody really seems to be suggesting that you shouldn't be buying, which seems a bit odd to me. But everyone who has an opinion on these things also has an interest in the share market. So,
right,
like if you ever listen to an analyst, they'll tell you they'll never tell you not to buy. They'll just tell you which stocks are looking good. And usually the stocks that they say are looking good are stocks that they have an ownership in.
Yeah.
And I think that's a fairly common tactic with analysts. They buy into a stock and then they release a
bit of a conflict of interest.
Of course it is. It's ridiculous. And then they release a bit on it saying how good the stock is, and then everyone jumps onto it, and then they just drive the price of it up. Like, it's absolutely ludicrous.
Just ride the wave.
Yeah. And, it's such a privileged position, but there doesn't seem to be any real kind of governance around that kind of thing. I don't know why, but
it's a bit weird.
Yeah.
How's your Ripple doing?
Well, Ripple are doing quite well at the moment, actually, because I think there was some good news around certain payment systems in certain areas that, I don't know, Ripple had secured deals with. So it actually went back up to $1.40 at one point. It's back down to $1.19 now, but yeah, almost back to the buy price I paid for it. So
Nice.
looking good, David.
Almost
Looking real
breaking
good.
even.
Yeah, no, I almost, you see, I made 10% on it at one point, and I was like, well, when am I ever going to get 10% out of anything? I should just sell. And I thought, nah, I'll wait for a bit. You know, it's still got more to travel. And then it dropped. So I paid $1.50 for it. It dropped down to, it went up to then $1.70 or something. And I was like, well, smart money here would be to sell, but I'll just hold it because I think it's got more growth in it. And then it went right down to 80 cents. So like almost half the value I paid for it. And I was thinking, oh my God, what have I done? But now it's back up to $1. It was up to $1.40 actually earlier. So it was looking pretty good, but now it's back down to $1.20. So, you know.
Quite the roller coaster.
Oh, look, it is. I think that if I can make any profit in it, I'll just sell out of it and just count myself lucky because really, I think I always said from the start that cryptocurrency is, as far as I'm concerned, intrinsically it's fairly useless.
Yeah.
Because it's a digital currency. I think Bitcoin has already been hacked in some capacity or another. I don't know how exactly, but and it doesn't seem like they're all the kind of secure currencies that they'd like us to believe. And second of all, how can you have a viable currency that fluctuates in price so dramatically? Like, you know, you own one Bitcoin. At the start of this year, it was worth like $20,000, and now it's worth like $8,000. You couldn't actually hold that to buy anything of like any everyday items, could you?
No.
So, you know, until you can get a cryptocurrency with a stable price that is used widely, it's not going to be valuable. And, you know, if it's got a stable price, you wouldn't want to invest in it. So,
Yes.
to me, it all just seems a bit ridiculous. But
well, like you say, you can't really have it as an investment, purely speculative fun.
Well, it is speculative fun, and that's exactly it. And that's why I got it. But I'm now kind of, after my limited kind of research and reading, it seems that speculation doesn't, like there's just no evidence that speculation will actually pay. And of course there are people who invested in Bitcoin who would absolutely disagree with me. But I mean, those same people have potentially been reinvesting their money across different coins, and you know, like depending on how widely they're buying and selling, you could actually have lost all your earnings by now, just depending on when you buy and when you sell.
Thanks again for joining me, Alex.
Not a problem, David. Pleasure as always.
You can follow and get in touch with us on Twitter at Tangential Soup, and you can find this week's show notes with more information about today's topics at tsp.fm/32. If you enjoyed today's episode, please consider sharing it with anyone you think might also, and we'll talk to you again next week. Bye.
Ciao.
Going back to our roots, Alex, I saw this article about all these wonderful new emoji that are coming in 2018.
Yes, this is a blast from the past, isn't it?
It is. But mainly the reason why I added it to the show notes is because there's a kangaroo finally.
Wasn't this a special time?
Finally, an Australian animal made the cut.
Yes, well, obviously an iconic Australian animal.
Yes.
You know, you wouldn't see one of the weirder little mammals on there just quite yet.
But they're certainly opening up to a whole host of new things. Some of them I thought were a little weird, but they always are.
Yes. It seems that they all... I mean, I guess they're all things that would come up in everyday conversation for the most part. Is that a germ?
Microbe, yeah.
Oh, lovely.
And they've got a moon pie on there for some reason. I don't know what the difference between that and a regular pie is, but that's cool.
Oh, moon pie. They're like a Chinese kind of pie.
Right. So very, very different.
Yes. Yeah, look, I mean, I guess it's exciting. I have a
I guess that's exciting. It's very exciting, Alex. Get enthused.
Okay, all right. I'm super enthusiastic. I have a search function on my phone for my emojis, but it doesn't seem to work properly. I don't know if it's just a problem with my phone or a general issue, but it doesn't seem very predictive. I think I was searching for heart or something like that, and I couldn't find it.
But there's like 3 or 4 or 5 different heart emoji. It's weird. If it was that, they should all come up.
No, I was looking for poop. That's right.
Well, that's still a pretty iconic one.
It is a pretty iconic one. I think I was putting in poo though, so maybe it's just because my search function didn't know that I wanted poop from poo.
Weird.
But I mean, it's part of the word.
It is.
Anyway, that's my gripe with. It's probably just very specific to my phone, or perhaps I was just misspelling poo.
Is that like part of the feature of the keyboard?
Yes.
What keyboard are you using? Do you know?
It's got letters on it and and emojis.
I just mean with Android, you can install custom keyboards. There's a huge array of them. And you might be, because you have a Motorola phone, it could be like a custom-y Motorola one. You might be better.
Google thing up the top left-hand side.
Okay, it could be the standard Google one then, but it might not be the... Like, it could be a Google one that came with the installation of Android on your phone, as opposed to the one that you can install through the Play Store, which is constantly updated by Google, potentially.
Ah, right, okay. Because I did just retry my search with the word poop, and it didn't work in my search function.
If you go to the Play Store and put in Google Keyboard, you'll either see whether that's the one you've got installed or not, and if it's not, I would suggest maybe installing that version.
Ah, right. Okay.
Yeah. It may or may not make a difference, but it could very well.
It's not the one I have installed.
Okay. You should try that one.
No, it is the one I have installed. It is the one I have installed.
Did it say installed, though?
It says uninstall.
Oh, so it is that one. Okay. Well, it's weird that doesn't work, because that's coming... Like, that's made by Google. And, of course, Google are the best at search stuff, so that's weird. But anyway... Maybe you found a rare glitch.
Can't search poop in emojis.
No. Have you been following any of the Winter Olympics?
I haven't. I think I saw the Mexican outfits. I think it was Mexico. One of the summery countries' outfits, and they looked a bit ridiculous, but that is the entirety of my exposure to the Winter Olympics. Did
you see that Russia's kind of not really involved? They sort of are, but not really.
No, I didn't.
They're like, due to, I think it was doping problems, but the Olympic Committee has kind of banned them from participating, but in a weird compromise to not completely penalize the athletes.
Right.
Or the ones that weren't directly involved in the scandal. They are participating, but under some acronym that's like Olympic athletes from Russia, but not actually Russia, and they don't have the Russian colors, and they weren't allowed to use their flag anywhere, like in the opening ceremony. They've got these plain costumes. Gosh. And any medals that they win won't be officially counted or recorded in history as going towards Russia.
Oh, wow, okay. So they just go towards those particular athletes.
Yeah. Really weird.
Well, that's actually pretty cool, isn't it?
It's cool, but it's
Although
weird.
I bet when they get back to Russia, they'll be like told to hand over the medals to the Russian government and punished for competing or something.
Oh, maybe. Who knows? But I saw like this acronym. I'm like, is there a new country? It's like OAR or something. Olympic Athletes of Russia. Yeah. I'm like, what the hell is that? And it's got like the Olympic rings next to the names, as opposed to a flag, and I'm like, what the? I looked this up, and I wasn't aware of it before.
Well, I knew that Russia got in trouble because so many of their athletes were caught doping. But yeah, that's quite funny, eh?